Well, I've managed to eke away a few hours to myself this weekend. I'm going to spend the day out in the shop today, and I'm going to get this Viair 400C air compressor installed in my Samurai. I'm also going to make up an air tank and find a place to bolt that under the hood as well. I've always enjoyed trying to package stuff in a Samurai. The space is fairly limited, and it's always a little bit of a challenge to find places to stuff things under the hood, but I've got a plan here. We'll go ahead and make up an air tank. I've got a spot in mind for it. Now in this Samurai I've got Toyota e-lockers on Land Cruiser axles, so I do not need the onboard air to actuate the lockers. I used to have Viair lockers in the stock Suzuki axles, and that's what I had. That's the reason I had the onboard air. I do, however, like to air my tires up and down at the beginning and end of a trail day, so onboard air is a necessity for that. And even though I do have bead locks, I have 32 bolt bead locks on this. These are only outer bead locks, so it is possible to pop the tire off the bead. And so onboard air is also great for those emergency trail tire repairs. Now here's the air tank I'm going to be using. I've actually already cut this down and tack welded it together. I'm going to finish TIG welding it here momentarily, but this was off of a cheap Chinese air compressor. The compressor head quit working on it, or the motor seized, I can't remember which, but whenever that happens I save these compressor tanks because I can make them into usable onboard air tanks in vehicles. So anyway, I've shortened this one down. I've taken about 3 inches out of it, and I've got a spot in mind for it right here. I'm going to cut those feet off of it and weld on a mounting tab. It actually fits quite nicely there and really doesn't burn up any more space. And it's already got a drain valve in one end, so I will be able to drill a hole in the fender right there to be able to access that. And I'll be able to periodically drain the tank. So the section that I cut off had a bunch of fittings in it, and so right now the air tank actually doesn't have any fittings in it, and we're going to have to go ahead and weld one of those in as well. But shouldn't be a problem. Go ahead and get this thing back on the bench and fire up the TIG welder. Well, I'm finished up with the assembly on my air tank. I've got my mounting tabs welded on here. I went ahead and welded shut the air ports that I'm not going to be using, and I welded in this 1/4 inch NPT female fitting right here. This is where I'll be making all my air connections, and took a couple inches out of the air tank. We cut that down and welded this end bell back on, and I actually left the factory drain in place. This is actually a pretty convenient placement for me because the tank's going to be oriented vertically, and so I'll be able to periodically drain the condensation out of the air tank. Then I went through my bin of plumbing parts and I put together this air test fitting right here. So basically I can hook my shop air up to this, open up the valve, let air into the tank, close it, keep the air in there, and then I can use my Windex to kind of spray and check for any leaks. I've actually got quite a few welds on this, so I did TIG weld it all, so I'd say there's a good chance I'm not going to find any leaks, but you never know. This metal was pretty dirty, so I may end up with a pinhole somewhere. So let's go ahead and put some air pressure to this and see if we've got any leaks. Now I do anticipate having a leak at my fitting right here. I didn't actually put any Teflon tape on this, so the fitting itself is going to leak right here, but I don't really care. That's just in there temporarily. So here goes nothing. Well, I don't hear anything major to begin with. Nothing around this fitting here. Check this port I welded shut. nothing there. And then we'll go ahead and check this whole weld around this end valve, because this is one continuous TIG weld that I did here. Looking pretty good. Don't see any obvious leaks there. Let's see if our factory fitting is leaking at all here. Nope, looking pretty good. Just as an example, I'll go ahead and spray this fitting here. This one will be leaking, so you can see the bubbles showing up right here. That's just because I don't have any Teflon tape on it. Let's go ahead and dunk this tank outside in a bucket of water, and that'll show up any leaks that the Windex hasn't uncovered. Looking good there. Yeah, I'm not seeing any bubbles come up anywhere. I'll go ahead and submerge it. You'll see some bubbles coming up right here around this fitting, so that's what we'd be seeing if there was an actual leak in there. I am seeing a couple bubbles coming out of this drain right here. Looks like it probably just wasn't tight all the way. Yeah, it's looking good now. All right. Okay, I've got my air compressor all mounted up here. I've got my air and power lines all plumbed in. Got my customized air tank hard mounted in here and painted, obviously. I put together this air manifold right here. I've got my quick connect chuck for my air accessories. Really, it's just going to be used to air tires up and down. But I've got my pressure switch here. This is off at 140 and on at 110, I believe. So the air pressure in the tank is going to be between 110 and 140 psi. That's where the air compressor is going to cycle. This is where the air compressor is hooked up to the manifold. And then down here I have a pressure relief valve. So the set point on this, I believe, is 160 psi. And that will protect the tank from explosion if for some reason the pressure switch doesn't shut off the air compressor when it's supposed to. So, and power for that runs through this relay right here. So that's it. System's all plumbed in and ready to go. We're going to go ahead and turn the switch on in the dash and let the air compressor press the tank up. And once the pressure switch shuts it off, we'll go ahead and check all the fittings for leaks. We have to pardon this bundle of wires right here and all the dirt. I'm actually in the process of wiring up my electronic lockers in the axles right now. So. Seems to be working good. I'm not hearing any air leaks or anything like that. We'll go ahead and let it pressurize the tank. And then we'll use the soapy water to check for any leaks. Okay, that's it. The pressure switch turned off the air compressor. It just took a couple of minutes to fill that air tank up. So let's go ahead and check for leaks. If we did have any leaks, there'd be some bubbles forming pretty quickly here, so I definitely can't hear anything. I'd say that we're good. No leaks. Let's go ahead and make sure the air compressor cycles on. I'm going to just pull this pressure relief valve down here. Yeah, it seems to be working great. Well, that wraps up the air compressor project. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Thanks.